Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Southampton podcast. Today, previewing Matchday. It's under the lights, unlike our friends down the road. We're welcoming Chelsea to St Mary's tonight, and I don't know if I'm excited or nervous or what. My name is Greg. As always, I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, Zach.
Hello, mate.
How you doing, Zach? You all right, mate?
I feel like death, and that's why unfortunately I missed our crossover, which is very upsetting because that's the first episode I think I've missed since I joined. But it is what it is. I will survive and get through it because, you know, what other choice do I have? Hopefully I'll be joining you tonight to come watch it. We'll have to see, as long as, you know, thing is, I don't want to, selfishly, I don't want to, like, non-selfishly, I don't want to, like, befoul a plague on your entire household. That's kind of how I feel at the moment.
The household has already been hit. It is that time of year, mate. There's no escaping it. The germs have festered through the school, and
you're right. I don't have kids. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Like I think it's been such a short period of time since the weekend, and usually if it's a midweek fixture, it's like a cup game, so there's not less care. But okay, there is less care. So it's very surprising to be like, right, cool. Hang on a second, we have another Premier League game to play. So yeah, it snuck up on me. I'm surprised.
Well, I mean, let's face it. We've talked about plagues and illnesses, but if an illness struck our team this week, we would be in dire straits, right? We're already without half of them.
So I'd be playing the Premier League 2 teams would end up having. Well, I feel like we're one goalkeeper off of having an emergency loan, mate. So we're even far off at this point. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Like that's what happens, isn't it? If you play the sort of football that gets, you know, is brave. I know that's Russell Martin's favourite phrase. But you play that sort of football, and you play football where you get carded a lot. Unfortunately, those cards rack up, and it just so happens that all of them have racked up at the same time. I think it's probably better that you have all of your players suspended over one game rather than having everyone spread out. But you know, it's not ideal to lose most of your player base, is it?
The form that Chelsea are coming into the game to, it's maybe the better of the games to have missed out on and potentially, I guess, write it off early. But I don't think that that's the approach they'll be going into the game with. It's definitely not a mentality we've shown before. The line that stood out to me in the press conference, which is another one of those ones that is very soundbite worthy, was, "No, I don't mind if it's a good yellow." And I just...
yellow.
Yeah, I can't fathom that.
I think he gets let off because of the fact that we've had so many decisions go against us this week. Who cares? The last month or so, it's been ridiculous. I
watched a compilation on YouTube and it only set to upset me even further, so I'll be avoiding that. But I've looked up, as part of the preparation, you know, I normally like to look up some statistics and AI generate. Actually, as part of my preparation this week, I looked up who the referee was. So, but I think it was Harrington. It was not one that immediately stuck out as
that's not a name I've heard that I immediately am in panic about, put it that way.
Same with VAR, like, there weren't referees that jumped out as, this is going to be an awful refereeing experience. But, I mean, that doesn't really mean a huge amount based off.
That's the problem, isn't it? It doesn't. It just feels like luck. It feels 100% like a flip of the coin as to whether or not the referee is going to, like, you know, ref the game properly or not. And I just, you know, the fact that our managers had to spend more time this week having another chat with the people in charge of refereeing about another decision that's not gone our way that probably should have, for like
on first name basis with Howard Webb.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, you shouldn't be chatting to the guy in charge. It'd be like us, you know, in our jobs talking to the head of IT every day because of we just keep accidentally letting cyber attacks hit our company. Is that a problem? Like, it's mad. But unfortunately, it's going to be a talking point until they sort it out. And
I deployed this antivirus fixture, but it passed it straight to the attacker.
But like, yeah, it's upsetting. I said it once, I'll say it again. It's upsetting how much we have to talk about it because it shouldn't be the main talking point.
No.
But the fact that we have to now worry about the referee that's going to be playing is like they're an opposition player. Like, oh no, this guy's reffing, so we know that the chances of all of our players being sent off is high, and the fact that these goals won't be given, that's just insane. You shouldn't know who the referees are by design. That's kind of where I'm at.
I'm interested to hear your opinion on one of my takes, because I do tend to try and spin things into a positive light and take it from it.
Sometimes too much, but carry on.
Do you think that being forced to play these fringe players gives the attitude of having something to prove and might give us a slight edge in that respect? Like fighting for something more than even just fighting for the points. They're fighting for their place in the team. Or do you just not think it's within that group of players to step up that much?
Yes, and I just like to see it. We've had players that have been on the fringes that have, the fact that we're everyone's talking about the return of Tool Paul as if like, he's had a couple good games, but like the fact that was even a thing and he just wasn't sold in the summer shows that if you've got that mentality, you can get back into the squad. From a loan player's perspective, unless they want to spend the rest of their season long loan at our place doing absolutely nothing, they have to step up to either make a stake in our team or alternatively make a stake to somewhere else to take them on and play them significantly more. That's kind of my opinion of it. And then the other players, the ones in the background that in my opinion should have been playing better, well, it's one of those things where like, do you actually want to go to a club that's going to play you in January, or do you want to go to like the third division Belgian league? Like, you put in a shift, just put in a shift. What's the worst going to happen? You score a few goals, we get a win. You give Russell Martin, you give them something to think about. I feel like that it's really like sort of next man up time, and they need to start actually proving that they're worth, what we brought them in for. The entire point, we keep talking about the fact that squad depth is a problem with the amount of players we've signed and the fact that you've got all of these players. It shouldn't be. So it's time for them to show that they aren't a problem, or otherwise, off you go. See you later. It's kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah, and we're going to get into predicted lineups, which is going to be a very wild segment. For sure, because there might have to be some left field picks because we just don't have anyone left. But we've had a bit of an update, or I don't know if you saw, about Charlie Taylor, and it came out that it was more of a tactical thing because we switched to this back five and he was struggling with it. Do you buy that for a second?
I don't buy anything that. I think that he's never ever pointed the finger. He's not like a Mourinho, is he? That's going to point specifically at players being rubbish and point that out, right? Even in the whole Bella Kotchap situation, it's just doesn't fill it in with our tactics. BS, absolute BS. He doesn't want to play in the under-21, so why is he going to give him a chance in the first team? Or he does, and that would be completely out of left field tomorrow. Like, who knows at this point? But for me, I feel like he is very good at protecting them and will probably chastise them in private. He is going to get those sort of questions, obviously, if people are out of the team for a while. One of the other questions that we've barely had a look in is like, Smallbone's back from injury now, right? Yeah, he didn't show himself in good light, but considering he went from basically a number one pick to a player that we've both not spoken about in 5-6 weeks, there's a lot going on. It's like the whole McCarthy getting in before Lumley, and Lumley only really having a chance because McCarthy was hurt. We got told there were no injury concerns. He's always going to keep his cards to his chest, but no, I don't believe it for a minute. It probably is tactical in the sense of, I don't feel like you're going to put in the effort and the shift that I want you to, so I will play someone else in your place. Because if not, are you telling me that Ryan Fraser is a better left back than Charlie Taylor? Maybe he is. Who knows? What do I know? But like, I don't think that. I think there is a lot of things behind closed doors that we don't see, and everything that is said to us outside of that is entirely supposed to be snipped for the media, snipped for me and you to talk about. He's not going to he's not going to throw the players under the bus. He's just not that kind of guy.
It's the same with the referees, though. I mean, if they had a penny for every time he said Howard Webb's a lovely bloke and he's got a tough job, I just don't think that reflects what his mindset is, because
No.
he's got to be sick of talking to him at this point. And
yeah, 100%. And saying like, there's some stuff that's left on the field, and this isn't, how it's going to be, and we know they just need to be corrected. We have to trust in. I feel like, could you imagine saying that you go and visit HR for the 5th time because they've not dealt with a problem you've got at your workplace, which is essentially what it is, right? It's like the footballing version of HR at this point. They turn up, they go to have a conversation about a goal that should have stood, and it's like, hey, yeah, no, we agree with you, it probably should have stood. I'm like, cool, you gonna do anything about it? Wow, maybe. It's like, you're telling me that a man of his sort of personality isn't behind the scenes losing his absolute rag? Nah, I think he's very well media trained by design, but I think that his actual opinions around things you can see, because the mask occasionally slips, right? Like that one post defeat where he was mugging off the fact that we were asking about where's Lallana. He's like, well, if he was fit, he'd be playing, wouldn't he?
yeah,
And it's like, I get it, mate, but yeah, so I don't believe all of the stuff is entirely tactical. If it was entirely tactical, you'd have lots of things that would have changed, in my opinion. But it is what it is. We're not going to hear the true opinions of anybody, because I think that they like keeping their jobs, so not being fined.
Surely we'll find out tomorrow when tactics have to go out the window and we've got to get 11 men on the pitch that can play.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. If they're all being trained the way that they're supposedly being trained, they're all going to have to play that game. And like, one of the games that I'll put back to is, do you remember that? I can't remember what game it was. Do you remember the game we got knocked out of? I want to say either the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup
last year.
Yeah. So the game that was absolutely shocking, and the fact that I don't remember the opposition says it all. He gave a lot of players the chance to sort of put themselves into his idea of football, and a lot of them squandered that by trying to play Hasenhüttl ball, and they never played again. Lianco, people like Gineppo, that was the last time we ever saw him play in a Saint shirt. And then bang, gone out the door. And I have a feeling that a lot of these players are going to be expected to carry on as if, we're not losing. I don't think he's going to suddenly scramble tactics about and change it hugely. He's just going to expect the players that will come into that position to play that position. The one time he tried an experiment like that was Bournemouth, and look what happened. We had no out-and-out striker, and we scored at the end due to Taylor Howard-Bellis after going like 3 or 4 down real quick. So I just don't think I don't think that's a bad thing, though. Like, again, it will be a chance to, or it will be put to the sword, and he'll realise that we don't have the depth to keep playing like this, and maybe tweak his tactics going forward. I know he said he lives by the sword and died by the sword, but I also don't believe that he wants to be fired. I feel like the reason that he plays and continually plays the way that he does is that he knows he's got the back in. I feel like if they said you've got today and tomorrow to do it, or otherwise you're losing your job, I think he might tweak things a little bit more, but I don't know. I don't know the guy personally. I can only go from what his record is, but his record isn't to massively change things despite a change in personnel, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's what we're going to have to see. I mean, we've got no choice. So I guess that wraps us nicely into our predicted lineup segment. But first, a message from our partners at Zencastr. So here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so predicted lineups. Let's see if we can cobble together something that resembles an 11.
Right, well, so who's out at this point, right? Kyle's out, so you're probably going to have a James Bree.
No, so we've got Harwood-Bellis suspended, Flynn suspended, and Tyler Diblin suspended.
Yep.
And we've got Yanni B.
supposedly back, though,
Paul
right? There was conversations that he should be.
Right. Every single time
he
Russell
said
Martin
someone
has
should
said,
be back, they're not.
We'll check tomorrow and he should be in the squad. I've not seen them involved. So I think that Yanni B is still injured.
Is this literally just to keep Chelsea guessing as if they care?
Yeah. And Paul could be back. Obviously, Ramsdale's still out.
Yep.
And McCarthy's knees are falling apart because he's 103. So
it's like 35. People are so mean. He just looks older.
And I think that and obviously Leslie Ugochukwu, who I guess we would normally bring in for Flynn Downs,
Cup tied,
unavailable
right?
for selection because he's Chelsea are his parent club. So
Cup tied, yeah, parent, same thing. So yeah, okay. So let's go through it. So it depends whether or not he would risk putting Sugawara at the back again after last time. Probably not, I imagine, because he was at fault for a couple of mistakes at Brighton because they were trying to shoehorn him into a position that he doesn't really play. So you're going to have probably, let's say, I think if McCarthy's fit, McCarthy will play. If he's not fit, it'll be Lumley. We're not
do you
going to
think
know that until
Lumley's
tomorrow.
done enough to deserve a shot either way? Because I don't think he was awful against Brighton.
I don't think he was awful against Brighton. There are a couple of times that he did
I mean, is
what
that
every
the bar
single
we're
one of our
aiming
goalkeepers
for?
did.
This
Exactly. What is
that
the bar? Like, it's mad because it's like, well, surely a goalkeeper should just do a goalkeeper's job. And I was trying to explain to my wife that, like, well, yeah, but our goalkeepers also have to do like slightly more. It's not just about saving the ball. And like trying to have that conversation with someone that doesn't care or pay much attention to football was very sort of interesting because I realised, like, well, unfortunately, it is a bit more of an important position than we think it is. So yeah, like why not? I think that considering McCarthy's last game wasn't exactly great, and now it might be to do with fitness or what, but why
there
would
was,
it
I heard
matter?
that he potentially had to have like
It was injections, right?
shots, injections in
Yeah.
his knee just to get on the pitch, which is not.
Which is for me, I think that it was insane that he was played with injections and then still let in all of the goals anyway. So you may as well have just not had him and given Lumley a shot in. But we drew. It's not a clean sheet, but it wasn't an absolute drubbing either. A lot of that's down to luck and the players too. Don't get me wrong, but you know, if your first game that you've played in the Premier League is a draw, and every single other games that we've had have basically been losses, it's not really. That's not really a bad stat, is it, for you? So why not give him another go?
Yeah, I agree. I think that he deserves the shot in goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. He is also prone to a mistake, so I guess it's largely
No
irrelevant.
difference to us having anyone else in between the sticks, mate. At this point,
No, that's it.
That's all our players.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle and Yuki. I'm guessing. I mean, I can see him maybe wanting to put someone more defensive in, but who do we put Fraser in? He's not really defensive either.
Put Breezy in, switch
Breezy,
over, quick Carl on the left,
maybe.
And then potentially, have someone of a bit more experience. Because I imagine if Bednarek's back, if not, you're going to have Stevens, and ultimately you're going to have either like Nathan Wood or Ronnie Edwards. You're going to have these two centre backs we've seen nothing of really so far.
Ryan Manning, according to the press conference, can play full back, left midfield, centre midfield, or centre back.
I should put him up front. Why not?
Yeah,
if our defenders are having better shots at goal, mate.
I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if we see a back five of Kyle Walker-Peters, Jack Stevens, Ryan Manning,
Ryan Fraser,
and
then also
Yuki.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Just a bunch of left backs and right back, and somewhere Stevens is there. And then who would you have? Because obviously with Flynn out now, and also Ugochukwu out, does Smallbone come back in? Because apparently he's fit.
Maybe.
I know you're upset by the but
look, I like Smallbone and I want him to do well. I don't think that throwing him back in this game when Chelsea's midfield is what it is the answer.
But the problem is okay. So who else are you having in there?
I think Aribo becomes the holding part of this.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that obviously Matty Fernandez has consistently got to be the first name on the team sheet. And
Lallana's out, so no Lallana either.
Yeah, I actually think that you could put, if Tall Paul's fit, you put Tall Paul in to sit just in front of the midfield because he likes to come deep anyway. And then you stick with Archer and Armstrong up top as a front two and have him as Tall Paul as the option that's going to ping it off either direction to them running onto it. That feels solid. So
no, you don't think Cornet's going to make an appearance?
No.
It's pretty definitive there, mate. And you don't think any of the young lads, you don't think Wood or Edwards are going to get a look in either?
I don't know. I just feel like if they were going to be involved, we wouldn't have played Flynn Downs at centre back.
It's a fair point, right? Because it's like, why would you bother? If you feel like you've got the centre backs that are able to play that game, why would you do that?
But you're right. I mean, realistically, Wood or Edwards we'll easily swap into this same thought path in place of Ryan Fraser or James Bree. It's a really tricky one.
It's just that fear of them making a mistake and not having the maturity. But also where I'm at is
That's the
that
thing,
don't
right?
all of our players do that? Like, aren't we the highest team for the amount of mistakes that have led to goals
But
anyway?
also,
So
realistically, whatever team is named, right, an hour before the game, we're going to get those notifications through to our
yeah,
phone. And there's no way that the response to it is, yeah, that's a really solid looking team. I'd have picked that. There's no combination of players available where there isn't at least one point of concern that you look at it and go, oh, really though?
I think that's interesting though, because I feel like a lot of the players, that are out, other than obviously sort of Flynn and Taylor Harbour-Bellis. Taylor Harbour-Bellis didn't really start. Yanni B might be back. You're looking at, Tyler Dibbling is a player that essentially acts as a new signing because he didn't play at all last season.
Hmm.
A lot of the players that are sort of out and can't play, we would have not had last season. So it's interesting that that shows you how important our sort of purchases have been, as much as we mug off a lot of our signings.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll just have to see how it plays out. I think
Genuinely, I think it's a big loss to not be able to select Big Les, because although we've talked before, he's not Flynn Downs and he's
no.
not as useful in that role. He is still passable. He's still better in that role than anybody I think I've named currently, even with a mistake in him. But like you say, that's all of our players. So
Yeah, well, this is the thing, right? Like we might finally see the Archer Onuachu up top that we've always wanted, that our dreams are made of, apparently. Or I'd say our dreams or everybody's
my
everyone else's
concern
dreams.
with that, Zach, is that if we get that, and this is the only time they play together up front, you can't
And it's
judge. You can't judge the outcome
exactly.
based on, because the team behind them isn't going to have Downs making those important forward plays and Harwood-Bellis with the important big
But
balls
then
over
you might
the
end
top.
up with the same situation to play a little bit of devil's advocate that you talked about. You asked earlier on, are these players all going to be up for it? Well, maybe they are going to drive forward a lot more than previous because they're trying to prove a point.
Well, yeah,
If you get
we
sort of
always
like
step up for the big games as well, and
yeah,
Chelsea is a big game.
yeah, it is
I mean,
100%.
our relegation season, we did the double over them. We beat them home and away. So,
So like
then,
I'm not,
as mentioned in yesterday's crossover, the season before, we got absolutely battered by them 6-0, and Tino Werner, I think, scored a hat-trick. So,
yeah, but that's just being a Saints fan, isn't it? It is unfortunately hard to predict, and like I think it gets harder as each week goes by. There's not it's almost easier when everything's completely doom and gloom because you kind of expect to go into into each game losing, whereas now I don't really know what to think. We played the first half against Brighton was probably some of the most abysmal football I've ever seen, but it was the most complete 90 minutes of football because arguably we should have won. So who knows how we're going to step up? All I know is that, for a lot of those fringe players, it's either a chance to A, put themselves in the shop window, B, for those lone players to actually prove that they should be here and not elsewhere, and C, for all those other players to just put a stake in the team. Unfortunately, it's not a cup game though. It is a Premier League game. It will have points and it will have ramifications. If we go down by say like 5 points at the end of the season, I know that's laughable. I think I
it's
point out to
optimistic.
you if we lose by like 2 points, arguably it's the Brighton game, and you said, Zach, I want you to know that I do not think we will go down by 2 points, which made me laugh very much so, because for the optimist of this podcast, sometimes you can be more pessimistic than me.
That is open. There is interpretations there. It's because we're not going down, or because if we're going down, we're really going down.
You're right.
There's no middle ground. It's one of those two.
It is what it is, but I think it will be something different regardless, and whether we get really, really annoyed because we lose 6-0, you're going to have a lot of players that probably don't carry on in a Saints shirt. If we end up winning, it gives Russell Martin a lot to think about. If it's a boring 0-0 draw, again, it gives us more to think about. Like we constantly said that there's a lot of people wanted to see some changes and see some of the personnel that have been on the benches and the fringes. Well, today is a chance for everybody to have an opportunity caused by the fact that we like to play, and I quote, bravely.
All right. Well, that leads us nicely into one of the most difficult predictions I think we've had of the season so far. But before that, a message from our partners at the Global Sports Podcast Network.
The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up, broadcasted in 5 different languages. This is your one-stop shop for your daily football fix. Find GSPN wherever you find your usual podcasts.
All right. So, as always, I'm going to lead into our prediction section with a nice little stat. So, previous matches between Southampton and Chelsea average 3.25 goals.
That's exciting.
And both teams to score happen nearly 2/3 of the time. So we heard yesterday on the crossover prediction that I think we're going to win 1-0, which I think might be the most optimistic prediction I've ever made on this show, because the thoughts of keeping a clean sheet and holding a lead really do feel almost out of reach. But there is hope. How do you see it playing out?
I have not a lot of faith, so I'm going to go 2-1 win, because I feel like I don't know what to feel anymore after Brighton. I said Brighton was 2-2, and I was kind of accurate in a way, because I feel like had we had that goal stand, I wouldn't be surprised if they equalised, and that was how it ended up being. But also it's one of those things where I think that they are going to take us for granted, because teams like that do when they're playing really, really well. We will not. And I think that I'm really hoping that all of the people that sort of have that chance are going to grasp it. And we end up with, lots of criticism around Russell Martin picking favourites, because it turns out some of these fringe players can actually do a good game. So then what will happen is that we're going to start with like Sulemana up top and Cornet in our next game, and then we're going to get battered 6-0, because that's just how it goes. So yeah, like a weirdly optimistic note, 2-1, why not? Because we'll obviously go.
I'll be buzzing.
Obviously go 1-0 down and then somehow claw 2 back.
It'll make it a lot easier to record a match review at 11 o'clock. Tonight, if that's the case. Where are the goals coming from? 2-1. Who's scoring for us?
It's difficult, right? Because we have so much and yet so little. Why don't we go with a tall Paul and an Archer? Like, they're going to finally play together tomorrow, and everyone's going to finally see what they want, and then they'll do it again, and then it will result in us losing 5 or 6-0 the next game, because
2 goals from strikers might be the most outlandish prediction on the podcast
yet. You're right. I can't really be like the water boy that's come on as a sub because he's the only player available, or accidentally Joe Lumley clips it in from the halfway line when he plays so far out from the back that he accidentally scores.
Jack Stevens tries to cross one in from the halfway line and it accidentally gets caught by a gust of wind.
Sure, why not? Like, stranger things have happened. But yeah, I think it's just the nature of the fixture tomorrow feels so odd, weird, and out of place. And it might be that I'm still off the back of sort of hallucinating from whatever weird illness I've had, that I'm crazy enough to believe we might win tomorrow. But
I like it, mate. I love the
let's just go with it. Why not?
Let's roll with it. We'll be back after 3 points. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a game, and that is maybe the only prediction that I have any weight behind at this point, because who knows?
As long as I like Stone, we'll be beating our rivals anyway. So
yeah, the meter is topped up. We're all right. Well, you have been listening to Greg and Zach on the Daily Southampton from the Global Sports Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us. We will see you at St Mary's. We will be down there cheering the team on, and we will be doing our best to get an episode out tomorrow morning to review whatever chaos does ensue. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.